Hi folks, it's Farmer Tom here and this is Lockdown Learning, and a few weeks ago some of you will have seen that I planted some samples of different types of crop in these little pots here, and I thought I'd just give you a little update as to where we've got to and what's happening. And this reflects in some ways what's happening out in the field, although these obviously aren't field conditions. So first up, I've done it in alphabetical order as well because I'm a little bit of a pedant like that. So first up we've got some barley. As you can see, this is a malting barley variety, so that means it could go to make beer. We also grow feed varieties which would go to feed animals, and barley is also used to make Maltesers as well. So as you can see, it's looking pretty well at the moment. It's starting to yellow a little bit. There's a little bit of stress from drought. I need to keep these watered. The barley in the field isn't faring quite so well. It's a lot thirstier than this, so we are praying for rain this weekend. Next, as we move along the alphabet, we go from barley to beans. As you can see, there aren't quite so many beans in this pot, and that's because they're larger plants, so we don't sow quite so many in the same area. Not a particularly good distribution. There are a few blank spots here, which we do get those in the fields as well. But by and large, actually, it's looking pretty well. Those beans fix their own nitrogen, so they produce their own fertilizer from the atmosphere. So they shouldn't need any additional help. So they're the beans, they're looking good. Tune in a few weeks when they'll be flowering. And talking of beautiful flowers, apart from my wisteria up here, hashtag wisteria watch, we've got some linseed down here. Now this was some linseed seed that's about 2 years old, so I didn't expect it to have the same vigour and viability. Vigour is how fast it grows, and viability is what percentage of them germinate and start to grow. I didn't expect it to have the same vigour, but actually the plants are looking pretty good. And the reason I'm talking about them flowering is because they come out in about a month or so's time with some absolutely beautiful, beautiful blue flowers. They're kind of between the colour of my shirt and the colour of this door, so that's absolutely fantastic. As you can see, I've also got some volunteers here. When we get seeds left from previous harvests growing up in the field, we call them volunteers. And that is the same case here, although I suspect these have fallen from the bird feeder up above. That looks like perhaps some wheat, so we'll see if we'll leave that there and see if that comes to anything. But we'll come along to the wheat in a moment. We now move along to our oats. Oats can go to for a variety of causes. Most of our cereals could go for bioethanol, but predominantly that's the wheat, which we'll see in a moment. They can go for animal feed, and you might find them in your breakfast cereals. Anyway, these oats are at the moment looking pretty similar to the barley. They're looking pretty healthy. They've grown really quite well. I've kept them watered, but they are doing pretty well. So we'll watch how they differentiate. At the moment, they look very much like the barley. These are the oats, and that's the barley. But in a few weeks' time, we'll start to see a bit more of a difference. Moving along now. Now these fellas aren't looking quite so happy. These are our spring peas. I'm not quite sure why they're not looking so happy, but I did plant them a little bit deeper, and I wonder whether that might be one of the reasons for it. So perhaps they'll keep springing up, and I've noticed they're looking a little bit like they need a drink, so I'll give them a bit more water in a moment, and we might see some more peas starting to emerge as we come through. But so I've not completely given up hope on them yet, but they're certainly looking the poorest of all the varieties. And now I have to own up to a slight error here, in that here's my wheat, which I sowed about 2 weeks ago. It's looking pretty well, looking pretty healthy, although a little bit sparse. And one of the reasons perhaps it's looking a bit sparse is because it was a winter wheat variety. We have two broad types of our crops. They're winter sown crops or spring sown crops. The spring sown crops, which all these are along here, they get up and grow straight away. They bolt, they go as fast as they can to produce a seed. The winter sown crops, they need to, big word here, they need to vernalise, and that basically means they need to go through the cold of winter. So if they don't get a chance to vernalise, then they often won't go on to produce a seed. They need to vernalise, they need to experience the cold and some of the winter frosts in order to stimulate them in the springtime to grow on and produce a seed. So I would say it's relatively unlikely that these winter wheat plants, these autumn sown wheat plants, or typically autumn sown wheat plants, will actually produce a crop. So I'm going to re-drill, I'm going to re-sow. I've got some new seed here, which is definitely a spring wheat seed. It's a Malika seed. As you can see, it's red, it's got a little bit of fertiliser on it. That's a Malika seed, so that possibly could produce some bread. And in fact, if we can take this to harvest, here we are, here's my commitment, I will produce some bread from it. So there we are, those are the 6 varieties we've got at the moment: barley, beans, linseed, oats, peas and wheat. So tune in a few weeks' time to see how we're getting on with each of these, and we'll see if they can get to some kind of a harvest. Bye for now.